Hi, welcome back. So this week's video is a little bit late. This was actually supposed to be the video for last week. Um, I've come across a couple kind of hiccups trying to record this. This is actually my third attempt at recording this video. The first one, I recorded like 40 minutes of video, and when I went to edit, I didn't like how any of it came together. My second attempt, I ended up getting super scattered, and as I was trying to like actually piece it together, even though, like I said in my last video, I went through and did like full storyboard, full script, like I took the time to put everything together, and lo and behold, the very third time that I actually like kind of got it together, realized what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, my computer died. So I went to record and I had my phone balancing in the top right corner because my webcam is not connecting ever since my computer got an update. Well, my phone fell and it hit the corner of my laptop on the keyboard, and I have a pretty nice laptop. And I'm pretty sure it hit right where the hard drive is. So there's like your solid state hard drive and like your old school hard drive, your old school like disk. And I'm pretty sure it hit where the disk is. So my computer, when I turn it on, makes this awful like grinding noise. So I can't use it right now until I figure out what's wrong with it. I don't want to make the damage worse. So what that means is I can't edit. So this week's video is going to be like a one-shot thing, which is going to be really interesting given the topic. So bear with me. Mind you, like this is it. So the topic at hand is religion and yoga. You know, can you practice yoga if you are Christian? Now, the question that was posed revolves around Christianity and yoga. So that's kind of how I had directed my answer initially. I got a lot of papers kind of spread out all over my desk. That's the direction that I had kind of taken my answer. But as I, like, this is why I recorded it a second time, as I really started formulating the answer, it goes into, it's not just Christianity. Like, it goes into if you're Muslim and want to practice yoga, if you're really anything other than, you know, Hindu, Buddhist, or, I mean, it doesn't really exist anymore, but a Jainist. And the reason why is because of the history of yoga and the actual Eastern traditional background. So kind of combining new and old scripts. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the history of yoga and where it came from, to give a little bit of depth and to shine a little bit of light on why it is a religious hot topic. So the oldest documented religion is Vedism. I don't know if you can hear. I don't know if you can hear the dogs in the background. I'm sure you can. My dog is very loud. So Vedism started, it was documented anywhere between 2300 BC up to like 15 to 1300 BC. And the oldest documented script that the word yoga made an appearance in is a document called the Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest kind of manuscripts for the Vedic religion. Vedism was very sacrificial in a sense. So in its oldest form, the Brahmin, or like the priest class of this Indian civilization, this originated in India, of the Indian civilization that exists during this time, they would come to wherever to practice these rituals. The rituals originally involved like chants, song, dance, different bodily movements, and fire, along with whatever was being sacrificed. So whether or not, usually it was an animal, but whether or not it was an animal, like something living, or if it was like vegetation, plants, things along those lines, the the sacrifice was thrown into the fire, which was believed, the fire Anji was believed to take this sacrifice and transport it into the world of the gods. Vedism in itself is polytheistic, so their gods revolved around typically the sky and other natural phenomenon that exist therein. So they're giving these sacrifices to these deities in hopes that they'll have plentiful harvests, that they'll have good crops, that the farmer might do a sacrifice so that way his daughter will give birth to many children, different fertility things. So that's how it originated. As with most civilizations and religions and things along those lines, it evolved. As time progressed, the Brahmin kind of took it and ran with it. And over time, these rituals became more than just like a sacred circle in a plot of land that anyone could practice. And it went from something that was very simple and accessible to something that you had to pay a lot of money for to get the Brahmin to come out to do these super complex rituals that had to be executed in a very specific order that involved drinking like mind-altering substances. And of course, the belief existed that if you executed these rituals incorrectly, that bad things would come. So if you were doing a fertility ritual, for example, and you said the wrong chant or you did things out of order, then the exact opposite was going to come. You wouldn't have any children, or you might have miscarriages, or, the gods wouldn't be pleased, and so the children that you did have would be crippled. All these thoughts and beliefs existed around this religion. And so it worked, and it came to a breaking point. So at around like 6 BC is when the shift in mind occurred, where it went from these physical religious sacrifices to the working class kind of really rising up and realizing, the only difference between the Brahmin and me, and the only difference in these sacrifices and these rituals and what I can do is just who they are. And that's where the thought process of the divine really existing within everyone. So it became a process, instead of hiring the Brahmin to come in and do these sacrifices, it became a process where the sacrifices became more philosophical. People couldn't afford to pay for the actual ritual, and so it transitioned more into, the thoughts of karma, the thoughts of reincarnation, everything that we consider in today's day and age metaphysical. That is when this originally started. It started really questioning the macrocosm and the microcosm and the connections and everything in between. And that's when we really saw the rise of the different religions, such as Hindu and Buddhism and Jaidism. So the Rig Veda, with these documented texts and these rituals and things along those lines, these started way before Christianity even existed, way before, Muslim or any form of other deity worshiping religions blossomed. So that's where the disconnect is, because in essence, yoga and its postures and what you're ritually doing originated during that time when you were taking these physical sacrifices and people were making symbolic representation of it. So instead of sacrificing an animal into a physical fire for travel and worship into the divine realm, it became symbolic of sacrificing the ego to the fire that you are building within, to then try to reach that higher status, to reach that transcendental awakening. So when you think of it that way, and you think of what you're actually doing through each of these postures in its utmost traditional sense, it makes sense why current deep rooted Christian beliefs, deep rooted Muslim or Islamic beliefs have such a hard time embracing yoga. Yoga in itself is very religious, it's very spiritual. In today's day and age, this is kind of where it branches off. In today's day and age, it can be applied otherwise. So this goes into another question that I was asked. I I had my notes and I didn't even need them. So this goes into another question that I was asked about, I actually wrote a blog post about it, so you can check that out in the link below. But what's my favorite style of yoga just to get a workout? I have mixed feelings about this because for me, yoga isn't just physical, it's spiritual as well. But on that note, I do believe that yoga in itself, the physical postures, can be used to heighten and to elevate whatever spiritual journey you yourself is on and whatever way you want to cultivate it. So, in its essence, yes, a lot of the names, a lot of the Sanskrit names, have roots in first physical and then metaphysical, metaphorical sacrifices. You are sacrificing yourself to find the divine within yourself. That thought process and kind of the thought of cleansing by fire, of finding an awakening, and the gain that you receive through suffering. These are all concepts that you find in other religions. The reason why I say that this is very circumstantial and it depends on the person and the connection you make is because I have accidentally gone, and I say accidentally because there was nothing in this description about this class. But I went to a yoga class one Sunday morning. This is when I still lived in Ohio. Paid money, went to this yoga class, and the whole class was about, you're going to have to forgive me, I'm a little bit old on like my biblical references here, but was like on like Jezebel, I think. But like the whole class was comparing different trials and tribulations within the Bible and making these comparisons to the yoga practice. It wasn't at that point really yoga. It was, and I have to think of like what it was called, but specifically I'd looked this up because there is actually Christianity in itself has made, I believe it's called like prayer verse or like prayer works or something. But you do the yoga postures, but they have different names. Instead of, English, like your sun salutations or like mountain pose or things along those lines, or like Surya Namaskar A, or B, like it was called like praise Jesus or like worship high heaven. Not to be like teasing or making it sound cheesy or anything, but like that's what it was. And like boat pose was like Noah's Ark. And so it compared these postures, these poses that you do, and related them to Christianity. And so, in essence, like as you're working through these postures, and I will say, I'm kind of like jumping around because this part's not scripted. Sorry. When I was at this yoga class that Sunday, like it was really cool. I felt good leaving, and this is when I was still like very mentally like God, Jesus Christ, like, and don't get me wrong, I used to identify very heavily as a Christian. I think I'm coming to a point in my life where I'm really questioning that. There's a lot of things that are being questioned, which is very, very good. That's how you grow. But if you are someone that is deeply seated in your religion, if you are someone that comes from a deeply religious background or a very strong religious family, I'm going to use the comparison to my paternal grandparents. My grandmother, I can almost imagine her saying now that like yoga is like the path to the devil, that's false idol worship. And in a way it is. In a way it is. If you are practicing very, very strict classical yoga. By classical, I mean like talking around maybe like 2 BCE to like 200, like I don't know, it's not quite 80, but it's like the time of Christ. That time frame right there when Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras, like that time, if you were practicing that, I consider myself an Ashtangi. That is what I practice. My lineage is directly connected to like the Eastern practice of yoga. It's not what I would consider watered down Western yoga, which it has its benefits to do that. You know, your standard vinyasa class has the freedom to incorporate biblical text and compare, like, as you're doing your bridges midway through practice, make those comparisons to like the bridges in biblical stories and references. Like, that's really cool. But you're not going to get that if you go to a traditional hatha yoga class, or if you go to like yin yoga with Reiki or however you want to specifically pronounce it. I pronounce it Reiki. So if you go to like a traditional yin yoga class, definitely if you go to Ashtanga or Iyengar, like all of these classes are going to be very, very traditional, which can cause religious conflict. If you want to be a yoga teacher, you do not have to be Vedic. You do not have to be Buddhist. You do not have to be a Jainist. You do not have to be Hindu. You can be any religion you want to be and practice yoga. The thing that I think is very important to understand through this question, though, is what does yoga mean to you? What does spirituality mean to you? For me, when I was like very, very deep-seated, like went to church religiously, like absolutely considered myself a Southern Baptist Christian, during that time when I went to yoga, for me, I didn't think of the traditional Sanskrit names. Like Surya Namaskar is a sun salutation, a greeting of the sun goddess Surya. Like the sun god Surya. And those postures, your sun salutations, you are greeting a god. That in itself is blasphemic in Christianity, in like your Muslim or your Islamic religions. Take that out. Just completely take that out. If you are concerned or you have family members that are concerned about whether or not that's encroaching upon your traditional religion, you can take that and make that as spiritual as you want to make it to the deity of your choice. You don't even have to praise the deity. You can use it to where instead of, praising Allah or, any of the gods, that you choose, instead praise the universe, spiritual awakening. You were literally, saying good morning to the universe above. You can take that and apply whatever mindset you want to it. Do I think that takes away from the concept of practicing yoga? I think a little. I don't think at that point, depending on the yoga you practice, that you can say you practice classical yoga. The reason being is classical yoga is founded upon spiritual principles. And it's the same as, I'm trying to think, is like lighting incense or something inside of your house, Any religion can do that. The thought of incense and purification and things along those lines, you'll see that in a lot of religions. And where did you get it from? You got it from other religions. As a Christian, we celebrate Christmas, which falls along the same time as Yule does for pagan religions, So when you think of what is shared and what isn't, religion in itself is a big melting pot. So as long as if you don't get caught up in the thought of all these Sanskrit traditional names, just replace them with your own. You don't have to worship Surya, the god of the sun. You can worship any deity that you choose. And I think that connection, that distinction is an individual choice that everyone needs to make on their own. And I think the beauty of it is because it's so open, because it allows for, anything, that it does allow for discovery. It allows for self-reflection and a lot of introspective insight into what you truly believe and what you are deeply connected to. Now, this video, I didn't expect to be able to talk for 20 minutes, and I'm going on 20 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. Again, I'm really sorry for how scattered this is. Again, my laptop's not working, and I don't have a way to edit or a camera to record other than my phone. So thank you for watching. I will see you in a week. Bye.